Hello, it's Cassie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we have a special hop going on to celebrate Keionna, the craft therapist. She hit 500 subscribers, and so she wanted to celebrate with a YouTube hop. She also has some big prizes to give away, and I'll have all that information linked down below in my description box so you can check everything out along with where you're supposed to hop next. So let's get into what we are going to be making. So let's talk about the products first, and then we'll talk about the challenge that Keionna gave us. So this first product is the Brutus Monroe Farmhouse Friends. You know I love this set. I'm a farm girl at heart, even though I never lived on a farm, but all my friends did. And so yeah, we've got that set. We have some watercolor paper, we have a circle foundation die along with some Glitterstock, and then we have Aqua pigments. So Keionna gave us the challenge of what is your therapy? And she asked us to use our favorite technique. And mine, ta-da, is actually watercolor, believe it or not. I mean, I know I dabble in all kinds of mediums, but my heart always goes back to watercolor and how when I first got started in art, you know, many, many moons ago, watercolor just sang to me. So I've got some aqua pigments. I put this down on my Waffle Flower medium mat. That first color was brown and the second color was copper. Or no, it was brass. The second color was brass. And I just dabbed my watercolor paper right into that color, and now I'm just going to heat set that with my heat tool till that is just about dry. It doesn't need to be 100% dry, but pretty dry, pretty close would be good. And then I'm going to pounce my paper back into it. Now this isn't going to give the exact same effect as it would if I used like distress inks, but this is pretty similar. And it's the same sort of concept. You've seen me do that many times before on my channel if you've been here before. I'm going to take what's left over on my mat. I'm even going to get a little bit more, just see if we can get some more texture put on that background. And I love how the brass, which is a metallic aqua pigment, gives this shimmer to that background. And I love how the brown just kind of goes together. Now I'll pick up some of that color with water and a paintbrush, and we'll just flick that all over the background. And then let's take a closer look at how that's coming along. Can you see all that shimmer? That's gorgeous. Just love it. So I'm going to set that off to the side to dry, and then we're going to do our stamping. So I'm going to make a Mother's Day card. I know you're thinking brown Mother's Day. Well, it's all going to come together. So I'm going to grab out the little pigs in this stamp set. So I've got two little piglets and a big pig, and we're going to ink those up with some of my Brutus Monroe Raven Detail ink because that is waterproof. It's also good for Copics if you like to alcohol marker color. I'm stamping that down onto some watercolor paper, just a scrap of it, fit perfect, and I'm going to stamp it twice because I want to make sure I have plenty of little images for the outside and the inside. And once I have all of those stamped, we're going to go ahead and put down some color on our mat. The two colors that I have there are coral and orange, and then I'm going to mix those because I want, well, like a pig color, I guess. And so mixing those, I ended up getting a pretty good color combo. So I'll just start putting down my first layer of color. Now watercolor, like I said, is one of my absolute favorite techniques. I dabble in all of them, but this one my heart always goes back to. And what I like to do with watercolor, because it works in layers, is put down my first wash of color, which is all I'm doing here. So it's pretty flat, the color itself is, and that's okay. The coloring I am doing is actually pretty simple though, because I only use the two colors and I only end up using 2 layers on this particular grouping of pigs. They're pretty small images, so you wouldn't have to go too crazy. I'm using a number 4 watercolor brush, and so it's a fairly small brush. You could even go even smaller if you wanted a little more detail, but now I'm coming in with my second layer of color, and I'm not going to blend that out. Because I'm going color on color, the same color, I want those lines to be harsh in a sense, even though they won't really be that harsh once they dry because it is the same color on top of the same color. So we'll just put down shadows and shading where I think it might be. There's really no rhyme or reason to where I'm putting it. And then I'm going to let that dry and I'll move on to some brown. So I'll grab a little bit more brown because I got to color that mud underneath those little piglets. And we'll flip it over and we'll color the other little pockets of mud. I don't know what you want to call those. Whatever they're laying in. And then once those are dry, I'll come in with a second layer on the mud as well. It doesn't make too much of a difference, but it does darken it up some. And like I said, this is a fairly small image. Once those were dry, I fussy cut those out, and now we're going to do some die cutting. I'm going to cut a circle out of that brown glitter stock that I have, and I'm also going to use a stitched rectangle to cut out my piece that I ink smushed in, I guess is what you want to call it. My card base is some very heavyweight white cardstock. This is some Brutus Monroe, Not Your Mama's. It's 130 pounds, so it's pretty heavy. So I scored it at 4¼ inches, and I even flipped it and scored it again. And I left this in so you could see Max's absolutely adorable head as he inspects everything. For my sentiment, I just have a scrap of like some coral cardstock that I had on hand. I'm going to put this into my mini Misty, and I'll line up those two sentiments on there. They aren't going to necessarily go together on the card. I'm just stamping them on this same scrap that I have, and I'm going to ink those up with that Raven Detail ink. And I get a good impression the first time around, so I'll just pull that out, and then I'm going to put those into my guillotine trimmer to trim off all of the excess. I'm basically just lining it up with the clear plastic piece that's the holder, and then that works really well. That's typically how I cut out all of my sentiments. I just line up the edge right along that clear piece, and I get a pretty good cut every time. I do want a flag border or flag banner on the edges, so I'm going to cut into the center, and then from each of the edges I'll cut down to where I cut. So I don't know if that makes sense and how I'm saying it, but I'm showing you how I'm doing it. I've done this many times. There's dies. There are definitely dies out there that can do this for you, but I've done this enough that I feel pretty confident I can do it myself if I don't have a die handy. And so I'll just do that on both. And then we're going to get ready to start actually adhering our pieces to our card panel. I'm using some Nuvo Deluxe liquid glue to adhere down my circle. And then once I kind of get figured out where I want the pig and the little piglets, I'm going to use the liquid glue on the little piglets because that is Glitterstock. I want to make sure that it stays put. I wouldn't trust like a tape runner to keep it there. And then I'm going to use some foam tape on the back of my pig, and I'm also going to use some foam tape on the back of one of the sentiments. I love these little punny sentiments. They're so cute. So I'll peel off the release paper on my little pig, stick her down, and then I'll peel off the release paper on my banner, and I'll put that kind of right under her so it almost looks like she's standing on it. And I love how it says Happy Mother's Day. Thought that was fun. And then we definitely have to decorate the inside, so I'll put the last little piglets up in the top left hand corner. I'm going to tack down my sentiment and my pig down at the very bottom, and that one says Missing You Pig Time, so I love that. And then I'll go ahead and adhere the card front to the card base, and our card won't be complete yet because I definitely have to do some embellishments, right? So I'm going to grab out some metallic shimmering rose Nuvo drops, and I'll just put 3 drops up there and 3 drops down here, and then that's going to finish off our card once we tap those down just a bit. But there you go. There you have it. There's a card that uses my craft therapy, which it would be some watercolor, of course, just making crafts, or being crafty is a therapy in itself. So go check out Keionna's page. She is a wonderful crafter with great ideas, and I know you'll find some inspiration over on her page. All the details, like I said, will be linked down below in my description box. So if you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. And as always, I will see you very soon in the next video. Goodbye, everybody.